Have you ever wondered why younger generations today feel like financial security is slipping farther away with every passing year? Almost as if wealth itself is becoming thinner, weaker, and harder to hold on to because more than a century ago, the most powerful royal institution on earth, the British monarchy, experienced a financial collapse so quietly and so deeply that its aftershocks still shape modern economic life. And the story of how the crown lost its wealth is a hidden warning about what happens when old power meets unchecked greed. Back in the late 1800s, the monarchy looked untouchable, sitting on vast landholdings, royal estates, global trade profits, and the symbolic wealth of an empire that stretched across continents. But behind the glittering facade, royal finances were already cracking. Queen Victoria's sprawling family expenses, uncontrolled spending, and the rising cost of maintaining dozens of palaces had begun draining money faster than it could be replenished. And while the empire grew, so did the crown's private debts, because unlike the government, the monarchy had no taxation authority of its own, relying instead on investments, rents, and personal estates that were poorly managed and shockingly outdated. And as the industrial world modernized, the monarchy refused to adapt. While American tycoons were industrializing wealth with steel, oil, and banking, the British royal household was still relying on old aristocratic methods of income that couldn't keep up with inflation, urban expansion, or the collapse of old land-based fortunes. And by the early 1900s, the royal family was spending more to maintain its image than it was earning from its estates, leading to desperate backroom negotiations with Parliament just to keep the lights on in royal residences. But the real disaster struck after World War I, when the cost of war, the collapse of old European monarchies, and a global economic downturn pushed the British crown's finances into a near-failure state. Royal lands dropped in value, royal taxes were restricted, and the monarchy found itself owning vast amounts of property that looked impressive on paper, but generated almost no real income, turning many palaces into financial liabilities rather than assets. King George V realized the monarchy was on the edge of bankruptcy, but the public never knew, because the royal family executed one of the quietest financial restructurings in modern history, selling off ancestral lands, leasing royal properties, and secretly depending on government grants that were disguised as civil list payments, all while projecting an image of timeless wealth. The monarchy's hidden financial collapse wasn't just about money. It was about survival, legacy, and pride. And the crown understood if the British people ever discovered how fragile the royal finances had become, public respect could collapse faster than the wealth itself, so the royals protected the illusion of prosperity at all costs. And maybe that is why today's younger generation feels so financially unstable, because just like the monarchy a century ago, they are living in a world where wealth looks solid on the surface, but is quietly eroding underneath. And the real question is, if the richest empire's royal family couldn't protect its wealth from the forces of modern change, what chance does the average person have? And the strange thing is that while the public assumed the monarchy remained endlessly wealthy, the truth behind those palace walls was far darker and far more complicated. Because after World War I exposed the crown's fragile finances, the situation only grew worse as the 20th century marched on, pulling the royal family into a world where old aristocratic income streams simply couldn't compete with modern economic realities. The monarchy faced soaring maintenance costs, shrinking estates, declining agricultural profitability, and a public that no longer believed it was their duty to fund royal luxury. And by the 1930s, the royal household was desperately juggling expenses just to maintain the illusion of grandeur. Buckingham Palace required repairs they couldn't afford. Royal staff had to be quietly reduced, and even routine events strained the budget, all while the press kept portraying the monarchy as an institution dripping with gold, unaware of how close the financial foundations were to collapsing. Things worsened dramatically when King Edward VIII abdicated in 1936, because the monarchy was forced to negotiate his financial settlement, pay him a lifetime allowance, and maintain his properties abroad. expenses that were never expected or planned for, draining royal reserves at a time when Britain itself was suffering from economic depression. But the true breaking point came with World War II. When bombs destroyed royal properties, wartime taxes skyrocketed, and the monarchy's investment income plummeted, pushing King George VI into one of the most severe financial downturns any British ruler had ever faced. A collapse so severe that royal accountants begged him to sell more land simply to survive. After the war, inflation surged, the cost of rebuilding the nation soared, and the monarchy entered what historians now call its silent financial crisis, a period where the institution publicly displayed unshakable dignity while privately drowning in bills. Queen Elizabeth II inherited this sinking ship in 1952, and although she projected calm, the crown's finances were dangerously unstable because the modern world required televised events, expanded security, international tours, and constant public appearances, all of which cost money. Money the monarchy simply did not have, forcing them to rely more heavily on Parliament, whose growing financial control slowly stripped the royals of their independence. By the 1970s, inflation had reached levels the monarchy could not keep up with. Palace repairs were delayed for decades due to lack of funds, and documents later revealed that members of the royal household even feared insolvency if Parliament ever reduced their annual grant. To make matters worse, scandals, divorces, and growing public resentment made it harder for the monarchy to request additional funding, and the revelation that the Queen had once used legal loopholes to hide her wealth from public scrutiny suggested just how fragile the royal finances truly were. In 1992, a fire burned through Windsor Castle, creating millions of dollars in damage the monarchy could not cover. And for the first time in modern history, the Queen had to agree to pay income tax, and that not of generosity, but of necessity, because the royal household was on the brink of financial exhaustion, and the government was no longer willing to keep writing blank checks. Even today, the crown's finances are nowhere near the legendary wealth people imagine. Many royal properties cannot be sold because they are held in trust. Much of the royal fortune is symbolic rather than liquid, and the monarchy continues to rely on public funding to maintain its operations. And when you look at this long chain of hidden struggles, it becomes clear why the crown fought so hard to keep its financial troubles secret. Because the monarchy understood that once people learned royalty was not an unbreakable pillar of wealth, but just another institution vulnerable to mismanagement, politics, and economic storms, the magic would fade, respect would weaken, and the entire structure of royal authority could collapse. And maybe that's the deeper lesson hidden inside the monarchy's century-long financial downfall, that wealth is never permanent. Empires rot from the inside long before the world notices, and even the richest institutions can crumble quietly while pretending everything is fine. And if a system as ancient and powerful as the British Crown could lose its wealth without anyone noticing until it was too late, then perhaps today's financial world, full of invisible instability, rising costs, and systems stretched thin, is much closer to breaking than we want to believe.